Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Massachusetts. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, mixed martial arts. Send us a message, give us a call, come on in, and we will get you in better shape. You'll feel better about yourself. You'll have more confidence. You'll feel stronger. You'll feel more energized.
It will be the best decision you've ever made in your entire life.
Best decision with my co-host, Dan Robin. It's the best decision they'll make.
Yes.
How you doing today?
I'm all okay.
Okay. My Oura ring says I'm 68 today.
Right.
Out of 100. It says, take it easy. Take it easy. They should have like a little gif of somebody with their hands like this.
Right.
Take it
Just
easy.
calm down.
Just like a little sarcastic look on their face.
So something clicked with me on our last podcast. I, like a lot of our listeners, have been inspired by this podcast.
Dan, I noticed that when we were sitting here, I saw a light go off on you.
Something clicked.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I can't explain it. But I was like, all right, time to get healthy. Time to get healthy. I had that slovenly July.
Oh, right.
And the months before July were pretty slovenly, too. And the years before that have been pretty slovenly. So I'm like, all right.
Aside from the occasional sober January.
Yeah.
Mostly
so
slovenly.
I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. And also, as you know, on the podcast, we've talked about, like, I've had no sugar for a month or no booze for a month or this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now, inspired by what you're doing to prepare for a competition, I'm like, why don't I just do all of it? Right?
Nice.
Like, no half measures.
You know what I think we were also talking about? That Jerry Seinfeld method where you put up an annual calendar and then whatever you're going to do for the day, when you do it, you put a red X through it and then you try to string together as many red X's as possible.
And I combine these two things. So
it's
very easy. Anyone can do it because I just printed up I Googled printable calendar and printed up a sheet, put it on my wall.
You printed one up?
Yeah.
I went out and bought one at Staples. I'm so impressed. That's such a better idea.
Well, this way, if I only do it a month, I don't have to have a whole calendar.
Yeah.
But so I printed it, and I'm like, so what I'm doing is I'm putting a big X through the date if I ate entirely clean that date, and then I circle the X if I worked out that day.
Got it. So two symbols could land on any date. You could have a circle and an X.
Yeah, or just an X or just a circle.
And when did you start this, please, Dan?
Well, I was going to start Saturday, but then Saturday was not a good day for it. There was
all right.
someone from the gym, Jay Ierardi.
Oh, yeah.
And his wife, Regina. They had like a anniversary party.
Nice.
And I went in. They had it at a venue, like the German club.
Okay.
And I walked in. I knew the bartender, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And he was just immediately like, oh, let's have it. And anytime I was out there by myself, he'd be like, let's do a shot. And I'm like, all right. I'll start this tomorrow.
Not going to have an X today.
I'm going to start tomorrow. So, and I hadn't started yet. So I'm like, let's just eat. And then eating their food, was easier at the event. So I started Sunday. So it's really only a few days in, really.
So we're Friday here.
But it feels like a lot. I mean, it's been enough days in for me to, start. I've started losing the will to live. But
day 6.
Yeah. But, we'll think of the changes. Like
day
for
6,
me, so what I'm doing is,
restless.
if it hasn't been clear, it's no booze at all, no sugar at all, no carbs at all, right? Because I'm not having any snacks. I'm eating clean, right? Like my definition of clean for me is now like raw, like meat and vegetables and fruit, period.
Right.
So no dairy. I don't even know what else is vanishing from my diet.
No rhyming foods?
Probably, yeah. No cheese. Well, the cheese doodle is is an exception. But no, nothing. So you got to think that's got to be playing some sort of havoc with my body, right? Like it's got to be. I mean, that's a big change, right? To everything to go cold.
How do you
on
feel?
All of it.
Did you feel a little sluggish when you made the change Sunday, Monday, Tuesday?
I can't tell. I can't. Also, well, each of these days I've been working outside, doing a lot of work outside, so I'm just kind of tired and it's like manual labor, like hauling railroad ties just from my yard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's got me tired. So you know what I mean? I can't tell how much. I don't feel great. It's not like now I feel transformed or I feel horrible, neither, or like withdrawal.
My guess is it takes at least 2 weeks for your body to process that change, I would think.
I'm hanging in. Oh, the one other thing on the calendar, at the bottom right corner, I'm writing my weight before I go to sleep.
Before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
I like it.
So I just write my weight.
Have you noticed any change in your weight?
No.
Nothing.
That's another thing. I'm like, how is this possible? Like how?
You're working.
Like how
You're
can
working
I cut?
hard manual labor, eating impeccably, no alcohol, no sugar, and your weight's staying the same.
Yeah. How is that possible?
I'm going to make a prediction. It's going to kick in with a big bang sometime next week.
That's what I'm sort of thinking. Also,
Yeah.
because with weight too, as I guess everyone, like I think there's at least 5 pound variation in a single day, right? So
I think I found that if I eat impeccably, I get down very lean weight. I'm pretty lean right now. I think I weighed 176 this morning. But if I have one bad evening, I can put 7 pounds on. It's insanity. But I think it's mostly bloat, but it feels like it can happen.
it's probably
that.
easier to lose than in that case. I'm hoping.
You can lose it
Otherwise,
back pretty
what's the
quick.
point
Yeah.
of any of it?
Yeah. You can lose it in 2 days. You're back. But it's amazing how quickly it'll come on.
Because well, there's so I don't sit here missing eating like cheesecake and this kind of stuff. I'm not actively missing it. Like you said already, I'm not really missing it. But it's sort of like all the joy is sucked out of life though. What do you say to that criticism of this? I'm like, what am I living for?
I did notice
If
when
I
I
can't-
stopped drinking alcohol
Yeah.
that things were a little less fun. Like
Yeah.
I could watch some TV and have a couple drinks, and I would probably laugh a little bit more at, The Office or South Park or something, and everything's a little bit better.
Well,
Yeah.
think of it this. Well, the way
That's
I'm looking
terrible,
at it is this. I know. Well, I'm thinking of it this way that it's like, well, look, you won't even miss eating this kind of food or drinks after this amount of time. But I'm like, but do you want? Think of anything you enjoy in life. Say you like watching football, and you're like, if you do this, you won't even miss it. You won't even care. You're like, but I don't want to. I like watching football. I don't want to be where I
I like
don't
watching
care.
football.
Do you know what I mean? And it was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but if you do this, you won't waste any more time, and you won't care.
Mm.
You're like, I don't want to get to where I don't care.
I think football is a great quote unquote vice if you're going to put it in that category because, if you watch the Patriots, you're going to watch 20 games a year at most, I think, or something
Yeah.
like that, right? So
Football's the sport to watch
It's
if you
the
don't
best,
want to. You
right?
can't 162 games to watch the Red Sox.
especially if you're a
you
Pats
can't-
fan, and
Yeah.
because they're going to be winning more often than not, it's just great.
Yeah, but well, for the next year or two.
Yeah,
But but it's so much less of a commitment, right? You're just like, just Sundays I'll watch football. The other
Yeah.
days I'm set.
it's great.
But anyway, so the calendar is up. The
So
eating.
it sounds
clean is
like we don't
on.
have any clear results yet.
Yeah, so far I'm doing. Oh, but the one other thing I'd say, my other piece of advice, I like this approach of the calendar. I like this approach of eating clean. There's two more pieces of advice I give if anyone is actually thinking of trying any part of this. One, for the calendar, what I've run into is like what counts. Did I work? If I have a whole day of really hard manual labor, is that working out that day? Do you know what I mean? Like. And at first I was like, sure, I killed myself today.
I think
But-
so.
But I think it's a slippery slope.
Mm.
So I think I changed it to I have to like put on workout gear and go work out. Like I have to either run or I have to do something where because it's too slippery slope. Because then the next day I worked out, I did some more yard work and I'm like, well, was that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it
Pretty
has to be-
soon-
I think it has to, yeah.
Hauling your fat ass off the couch.
Yeah,
is
I'm
a
like, I
workout.
went up and down the stairs twice today. Yeah, so I think it has to be black and white. Otherwise, you just start going.
I like that little rule I got to put on my workout clothes.
Yeah,
I think that's another little thing from sort of the school of tiny habits, that BJ Fogg guy, where I'm just going to put my gear on and I'm going to do one little thing. I'm going to do 2 minutes of jogging or whatever.
Right.
You end up doing an hour because
right.
just
The
got
hard
it
thing is
started.
getting to the gym.
Yeah.
Once you're there,
Right.
everyone says that about jujitsu, right? You're like, oh, I don't know. It's always easy once you're there. It's back
you
at
never
home.
regret going, I don't think.
Yeah,
Yeah, when people are on the bubble, they're like, I'm a little tired. I don't know if I'm going to go. If they force themselves to go, they're always happy they did.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty universal.
So the last workout advice is just that black and white for what qualifies, because and then
like
the
that.
eating clean. It's like today I already can't. I had like a little like some kind of like a little wrap around the thing I was eating, and I'm like, that doesn't count for me as clean. Like there was like, it's like a bready.
Because of the wrap. Yeah.
And it's a tiny bit. But here's the other thing that I think it opens up for is like, just because I don't get the X or the O, I still have a better day. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not like, that's what I think better about it than most people do cheat days.
Right.
And I think that allows them on that day to just be like, I'm going berserk today.
They
right?
go berserk.
Like,
and then
and
it spills over. If the cheat day happens on a Friday, it's easy for Saturday and Sunday to roll into it,
yeah,
too.
and you've got that leftover pizza sitting there staring you in the face, or the leftover. Like, so for me, instead of like a cheat day and anything goes, it's like, all right, if I slip, I'm not getting it on the calendar, but like it's still going to be a good day. Like it's still like a hard, like if I don't get to put the circle because I just did hard manual labor, so what? Like I don't put the calendar doesn't get it, but I know that I worked out that day.
Right.
Like I know it doesn't have to be like.
I think that's a pretty good program, Dan.
And so, one of these days, maybe I know like on Sunday, someone's coming in from out of town. We're eating at a restaurant, probably won't have a totally clean day.
Right.
But the difference is in the past, that morning and that for lunch, I'd have bad food too. You know what I mean? And then meet them for dinner. And now it's like, I'll try to be healthy the rest of the day. Anyway.
I find, here's another point, calendar's so good, the Jerry
Yeah.
Seinfeld method. When you measure anything, it tends to improve. That's a pretty solid rule, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I noticed that since I'm wearing this Oura ring measuring my sleep, I want to get a higher score, so I try to do things to have better sleep. And I feel better and I'm healthier for that. I go to bed a little bit earlier and so forth.
And we've talked before about with lifting weights, not on the air, but it's always helped both of us to keep track of you have to keep track of the weight.
Yeah.
Like, and be like, see it going up.
Because here's a big diversion. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that movie with Bruce Willis? It was a M. Night Shyamalan movie, Unbreakable, I think.
Yeah.
Where he's a superhero.
Yeah.
He can't get hurt. Survives a train crash. So he finds out that he's a superhero when he's like 40 years old, right? I don't know how old the character is supposed to be, but he's a middle-aged guy, right?
Yeah.
And he's in his basement bench pressing. And for the first time in his life as a middle-aged man, he's going to find out how much he can bench presses,
Right.
which any red-blooded American man would say that's crazy. Like literally every man or young man or boy, they test themselves constantly all the time, right?
Yeah.
Who the hell would be 40-something years old and never try to max their
Well,
bench?
how about never noticing that you can't get hurt? I think that probably would have come up at some point.
Come up.
At
I think
some
that points
point, be like,
to
did you just put your hand in that fire? Like I think it probably would have come up at some point.
I think M. Night wasn't a very athletic guy in his youth. That's what it's pointing to, right?
Yeah. One thing about so Unbreakable is one of these movies. It's a lot of people like, oh, that movie's great. Like I rewatched it I remembered it from when it came out, and I remember not liking it as much as everyone else. So I rewatched it with my son.
Yep.
Just like a couple years ago.
Okay.
I'm like, garbage.
It's garbage.
Sorry, everybody.
Well,
Unbreakable's garbage.
I like the concept a little
Yeah,
bit.
the concept
I like
is
Bruce
really
Willis,
yeah.
kind of.
Me
but
too.
Yeah, the movie was
Me too.
unsatisfying.
I can't remember now, so I'm not going to be able to give the good critique. But I remember it just didn't make sense, and like it just didn't hold together. Like the things that were happening were like hokey and didn't hold up to any sort of criticism.
Created the worst movie of all time.
Which one is that?
Lady in the Water.
Oh, I saw that.
That is so bad. It's beyond belief.
Almost all his movies are pretty bad.
So bad. He
Well,
had a good actor in it. What's his name?
I can't remember.
He's the guy that's on Billions now. His dad was the president of Yale. I forget his name at the moment, but he's a really great actor. But the movie was so bad, so insane. I mean, like this person appears in a pool in an apartment building. It was so stupid.
He has a lot of didn't he have the one with Marky Mark where the wind was making the trees were fighting back again? Oh, spoiler alert. Spoiler if you don't want to know what happens to the Marky Mark.
He had that one
like
twist.
the
Sixth Sense was good. Then
Yeah,
every other movie has a twist, and the twists are so
stupid.
obvious
Yeah.
that
you either spot him ahead of time.
he had that one where these people are living like it's in the 1600s, and somebody goes, "Yeah," to me. I didn't see the movie. There's a twist. I said, "Yeah, it's modern day. They're just Oh, you knew that? Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could figure it out during the movie
Yeah.
too, especially because now you go in going, I bet there's going to be a twist.
And where do people live where no planes fly over
Yeah, I
in the
know.
United
Yeah.
States? Impossible, right?
Yeah, it's not good. That good.
All right, we got off track.
Yeah. All right, well, we can move on, right, to the real stuff, the real content.
Can move on. So yeah, so our advice to people is if you want to improve something, try the Jerry Seinfeld technique.
Print up that calendar.
I'm doing it, Dan. I'm checking off my days.
For what? What are your checks? Like what gets you a check mark?
No alcohol, eating healthy. Yeah.
Right. But I would recommend, like I said, one lick of a lollipop and you don't get the check.
I hear you.
And you know yourself that you're like, okay, I didn't pig out that day. It didn't even matter, but I don't get my check.
I was listening to Peter Attia. He has a podcast. He's a doctor. And he referenced some, I don't know if it was his own experience or study. I think it was his own experience because he has the Oura Ring, that he found if he had one drink, it did not impact his sleep. But as soon as he had 2 drinks, his sleep went down dramatically, the quality of his sleep. I think there's something to that, unfortunately.
Right. Well, that's why I never go over 1 when I'm drinking.
That's it. I might have 1. But I do feel better without the alcohol and eating healthy, and I'm lean.
I'm still waiting, but it makes sense that my whole body, I need a week or so to.
Know what I noticed about the alcohol, Dan? I'm training really hard for these competitions. Usually twice a day I'm doing jiu-jitsu, and I found that I was getting a lot of muscle cramps in my abs and sometimes my lats, and I'm drinking a lot of water, but I couldn't stay hydrated. And when I got off the alcohol, that pretty much went away. So I think the alcohol was like this, enough of a diuretic, enough of a hole in the boat that no matter how much water I drank, I couldn't keep up with it. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And none of this is going to be permanent, like I don't think I'll never have another drink. But again, I think it's, there's something to that letting it slide a little bit that's I think going to work for me, where it's like, all right, I don't get my check mark, but I'm not like out now. You know what I mean? It's not like, okay, now it's all over.
It's not like screw
so
it.
I could maybe do some version of this like
for the rest of your life?
Indefinitely. You know what I mean? Like just, I might ease up. Like what I want to do is lose some weight, like get back to where I feel really fit.
Yeah.
And then ease up. Because, so this is one more thing. Like we've talked on here about like that, like negative self-talk, and I'm brutal with it. Like I'll be driving away. Like if you can hear what I'm saying, like I'll be driving away from jiu-jitsu, and if like my talk was like broadcast, it would be like, Jesus Christ. It would be like, what are you doing? Like I'll be like insulting myself, like just like personal stuff. I'm mean as hell to myself. So what I'm fine, but
maybe you should start saying that out loud just to give yourself a more realistic gauge.
No, I already do.
Oh,
in the car, like cursing at myself. And, oh my God, you suck. Like I don't think that's good. Right?
Okay.
We talked about that. That's not good, and you should stop that. However, this is what I thought about for like the eating clean. There's something to criticizing yourself. Like, so for me, I'll be like, oh, I really want, that cheesecake that's in my fridge or something. And I'll like, it's not for everyone, but for me, I'll be like, well, if you weren't such a freaking slob the last few months, you'd be able to have the cheesecake, you pig. Like I'll just, like to myself, I'm like, well, I'd never say that to anyone else, but I can be mean to myself, right? So I'm like, I'm saying stuff like that constantly these days. Where I'm like, that's my mindset though, is like, look, you're paying the piper now. You can't have anything until you lose that weight. And then if I get down there, I'll be like, all right, now you deserve it. Now you can have some
I
more
think
of that
one of
cheesecake.
the other good things about it is you change your set point. So you change what is normal.
Right.
And your new normal is closer to healthy.
Right.
So whatever weight you get down to, if you get down to 185 or 180, I don't know what the weight is for you, and you're there for a while, then you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is a good weight. So then when you veer off of that and throw on 5 pounds, you'll be like, yep, time to correct course here, get back.
Right. Well, my weight happens to be the same exact as your weight.
Okay.
So I'm sort of like, so if I used to go like hover between, say, 185 and was getting up to 190. I very rarely hit 195, but same as you, right? Like maybe touched it once or twice.
Yeah.
And like Now I just want to hover between 175
Yeah.
to 185. Like just make it your lowest weight is now your highest weight.
Yeah.
Ballpark.
Yeah.
And maybe I might do 5 pounds lower than that, something like that. But that's the idea. Just be like, when I get up near what used to be my normal weight, I'm going to.
Their alarm bells go
alarm
off.
bells go off, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
And just drawing that weight on the calendar every day will help too.
That's a great idea. I think I'm going to start doing that. That's a good suggestion. Start putting that on the calendar.
Because then, say you go have one of these blowout weekends and you're up 7 pounds.
Yeah.
And you have to write it down. You're going to be like.
That's a good idea. Then you could probably track your blowouts where you're like, it looks like every 2 months I blow it out here. And then if you start doing it more regularly than that, that might also be an alarm too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all know weight is not really the measure of everything, but that's the other thing I'm thinking now. Like my weight's
But at
not
this point in our life, it probably pretty close. Yeah.
But I'm also, like, my weight's not going down yet, but I'm sort of feel like, look, it can't be bad that I've cut out all sugar and booze and
Now, do you
everything
quarantine your house? I suspect you don't. My house is pretty much quarantined, where the guiltiest pleasure I have in my house is organic roasted salted cashews. That's the guiltiest pleasure we have. Other than that, we have cherries, peaches, plums, and meat and vegetables. And
see, I have for me,
coffee.
I don't even know how I define but I couldn't have the roast. I couldn't have salted. I think plain would qualify as like.
Well, the salted definitely encourages you to eat more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can eat a lot of salted nuts. If you eat plain nuts, you're going to get satisfied much faster. Yeah. Yeah, plain Brazil nuts, you ever have them?
Yeah.
They're pretty good, but after you have like 4 of them, you're done for the day, right? You don't want any more.
So is it coincidence so in answer to your question, because I've done this before where you hear this all the time, like keep the stuff out of your house.
That's the way I do it.
But that's not where, isn't that a coincidence? Because no one in your house wants it anyway. Like,
yeah, it's just me and Rory. Yeah, so we don't. Yeah.
But I have kids that want snacks. So,
yeah.
But that's fine with me. I'm not like, for me, it's also about willpower. So I'm like, I'll just load up. Because when it clicks in for me, it clicks in. If I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to eat it.
Nice.
I never, ever like just go like, start weeping and eat a cheesecake. Or like, do you know what I mean? I'm not like, it doesn't like, I never look at it and start going like, oh, I have to. And like tears streaming down my face while I'm wolfing down ice cream. Like, if I say I'm not going to do it, I don't do it.
You don't do it.
That's period. So the only times I will like sort of like say I'm like sort of break a diet or kind of that kind of thing is if I don't have the strict rules. That's why we keep talking about on here, like I need strict rules. If it's sort of like try to eat a little healthier like that, then what's that
doesn't work because your crazy mind that's addicted to sugar and processed foods can come up with the most insane rationalizations for not eating healthy.
Yeah. Or even just, I'll just have half of, the other week I had twice as much and, like all that kind of stuff. So that's why I also said on the calendar is rules. Like I only get the X with these rules. I only get
I like it.
the marks with these specific rules. Because once it's open, my mind's clever. Like you said, it'll start coming up with, it'll be like, you kind of worked out, like,
well, I didn't have I heard this one. Iceberg lettuce has no nutritional value. So I'm not eating it anymore. And meanwhile, they're eating everything they get their hands on. I'm like, see, that's the evil mind at work.
Right.
That's really not a thing. And I'm sure it has a nutritional value. That's just silly. That's your problem. You're eating all that iceberg lettuce. That's why you're overweight.
It's the lettuce is doing it.
Now, do you remember what you weighed in on Sunday?
It was like 187.
187?
Yeah.
And how about today? Similar?
Yeah, I think the same.
Same.
Maybe 186.
Interested to see
last night. I didn't do today.
Next week
Let's see.
Recording.
We'll tell the story.
Yeah.
I'll be kind of shocked if I can get all the way to next Friday with nothing, no change,
no loss. I'd be surprised. Right. Yeah.
Because I'm already starting to work on this theory. When I got on the scale and the weight wasn't down, that like none of the nutritional stuff is true at all. Like you're just as well off eating like a ring ding as an apple.
Interesting.
Like none of it is true. You can just eat sugary snacks and, and whatever you want. And none of it, it's all quantity.
Yeah, I don't think so, but
I
yeah.
don't think so either.
Yeah.
That
Well, the
that's a
other
pretty-
thing, people have that, they quote the laws of physics. It's like, it's all calories in, calories out. So the only thing that matters is how many calories you eat. You know, you'll hear that quoted a lot. And there's a sense to that. Yep, that kind of makes sense. But what they're overlooking is the fact that when you eat sugary processed food, you're highly, highly motivated to eat more calories than you would otherwise. So, yeah, the laws of physics still apply. It's just, but you're going to overeat.
Yeah.
You know, you can't help it. If you eat just steak and vegetables without, you know, any sauces or anything like this, guess what? You stop eating when you're satisfied. You don't overeat. Your just body doesn't want to do it. You're not motivated to overeat. Yeah, if you put a bag of salted pistachios in front of you, I could eat unlimited amount of that probably. Yeah.
No one's like, I can't believe I ate the whole head of lettuce. Like, you know, no one's ever like, oh, I just couldn't stop eating the lettuce.
I'm telling you, even a steak, if you have steak and arugula with salt on it, maybe a little olive oil and lemon juice on the arugula, you will stop when you're satisfied. You just cannot do it. It's hard to explain, but it's still, I find it very satisfying. But yeah, so we'll look forward to see what happens next week, man.
Right, the diet portion of the program.
Awesome. So now we're back at this book, The Little Book of Talent, 52 Tips for Improving Skills by Daniel Coyle. It's a really good book for somebody trying to get better at any sport or hobby. So last time we got the book out, we went through, we got a couple of good points in.
And this is improvement at any skill. And what was it we said last time? Just a quick.
Can you tell this in my book? It's all bent and dog-eared and messed up. What about last time?
Yeah, just a quick review.
The quick review. Okay.
Just to remind.
The quick review was, the first one was always exaggerate new moves. And I put this into play this week when I was teaching. And the way I put it into play is that sometimes when you teach a jiu-jitsu technique, there is a very common mistake that the majority of new students will make with the technique. You know what I mean? So 80% of people learning it will not get their head high enough. There's some common mistake. So I found when I emphasize this is the common mistake, let's not do it. So let's not have our head down here. Let's have our head way, way, way up here. And I over-exaggerate it. People learn the technique better.
Right.
So I think it's a pretty good rule of thumb, pretty good way to learn something. Because there's a reason that it's a common mistake. The reason is, for whatever reason, in human nature, people are tending to do the wrong thing. So we have to compensate for that tendency that already exists there by exaggerating to try to overcome it. So I thought that was a pretty solid one. And then the second point we covered was, excuse me. Oh, this is how we got you on your whole program, Dan.
Yeah, this is life-changing point.
Small actions repeated over time transform us.
Right.
That's the calendar. That's Jerry Seinfeld. That's the Dan Robin method. We could probably come up with a whole Dan Robin program based on this.
I should
I'm
write a
excited
book.
about it. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move on. We're not going to do all 52 tips. We're going to cherry pick the best tips for you, Dan.
Right. Life, and you never know when one's life-changing.
Right.
Like that last one was.
That literally is going to change your life.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
It could.
Yeah. And you didn't even read the book.
It could, because this one too is harder to, not to go back to, but it's like it's hard. I can more picture staying with this forever, because it's like, if you say no booze, I'm like, well, I'm not staying with that forever.
Right.
Like no good food. It's like, well, I can't do it forever. Like this diet, you know, you're like, well, I'm not going to be on this diet forever. You know, and everything out there. Let's get these Weight Watchers meals like forever. Do you know what I mean? Like what, you know what I mean? Like what do you, or even you eating clean forever. It's sort of like, that's too daunting.
It's too daunting.
So
So
it's
whenever
sort
I
of
see
like-
those Weight Watchers or whoever the other people are, and they're like, and you can have this shitty processed brownie as part of your thing.
Right.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I eat that thing?
Yeah.
But that's the big reward for their program, you know?
And for me, like I haven't, for all this talk, like I've stayed pretty good shape my whole life. Like,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like the whole, so it's not like I'm fighting, you know, like I had to do this big change in my life. Like,
Oh, right.
so I've been okay, but I've never been able to stay with anything too long. And then when I lose it totally. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm working out, and then I lose it, and then I go back.
I think part of it, when we analyzed you, I don't know if it was last week, we realized that you lean towards skepticism. So you don't buy the hype that much.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, which can work against a person sometimes, right?
Yeah, well, I don't buy the hype of any program in particular. And then when I lose it, suddenly it's like, what? Wait, it's been 6 weeks and I've been eating like a pig, or I haven't been going to the gym, or whatever it is. So this calendar, if I just keep that thing up, then
that's pretty good.
Because the thing is, when you slip, you have to keep staring at the calendar, and so it'll bring you back in. Like,
where's your calendar? Where do you have it hanging?
Well, next to my other calendar, like in my kitchen.
In your kitchen.
Yeah.
But it's something you use the other calendar for your family activities and so forth.
So I look at it all the time.
Nice.
So it's up there, and other people can see it too, which is a little.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Little extra pressure.
I like that. Yeah, that is good, healthy extra pressure.
You know, think about that. If you put yours up where Rory can see it, and then you're off for 5 days, it'll be like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that goddamn Rory. He'll rub my nose right in that. Yeah. God bless him.
So it's sort of like, it can, even if, say, you go on a vacation, because this happens to everybody, right? For any workout program or diet or jiu-jitsu or any of it. You go on vacation, you don't want to do any of these things for vacation, so you don't. And then it's a month, and then it's 2 months, and then you're like, and you never can, you know what I mean? Like, it stretches from the
holidays
vacation.
are coming up now.
Yeah, the holidays are coming up. Now's not the time to diet. I think I'm not going to be dying Thanksgiving anyway. So this is one where, with this calendar, you know, you can look at it and be like, okay, I didn't do any of it for the vacation, but now I'm back. And you're like, why am I still not marking anything? Like, it helps you get back onto it, is what I'm saying.
Definitely.
And the thing is, a lot of people out there, the jiu-jitsu people, you can do it for jiu-jitsu, right? Like, I went to jiu-jitsu or not.
Yeah.
Put the big X for jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Or
if you put a lot of X's
BJJ
together, you're going to get better. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and then if you haven't, you're staring you in the face. And also, if you're like, oh, I haven't been in a week, you know, instead of it riding, you're still looking at the calendar going, all right, I got to start getting that X back on there.
Yeah. Yeah, because people can go the other way. If they don't come to training for a while, they can be motivated to not go back because, oh, shoot, I'm going to be out of shape. It's going to be unpleasant. Guys are going to have passed me by.
Yeah.
Crap. And then they get stuck in I guess it's a bit of an ego trap, some kind of trap where they can't get back into it. So this would keep you out of that trap, I would think.
Yeah, and it just helps you resume after a break.
Yeah.
I think.
Awesome.
We'll see. The only way it won't work is if I tear down the calendar, which could happen, right? Like,
right. If you crumple up the calendar and pour ketchup on it and eat it.
Well, then it's the worst of both. Worst of both worlds there. But.
That's it. All right. So here's our first tip for today of the 52
Let's see if
tips.
we have more life-changing tips.
I don't know if these will be life-changing, but these are pretty good. So it says, stare at who you want to become. And so what I got out of this, Dan, is...
You could be arrested for that, though. I'm just saying, I've had some issues with that in the past.
People staring at you?
No, me staring at somebody.
Really?
With binoculars. No. Stare through the window at who you want to become? Is that the...
Well, let me put this into...
I didn't read it, so...
Okay, I'll put this into context.
Okay.
So what I got out of this is watch a match per day of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championship competition. So I have a subscription to flowgrappling.com, and they've video a lot of these jiu-jitsu competitions, the major ones and the major athletes, and they're up there. So you can just, and so this is different than watching an instructional. Just put up a match of Lucas Lepri or one of these, Lucas Barbosa, one of these guys who is a world champion, and just watch their match for 10 minutes or less. And I found it's really effective because on the one hand, it's sort of inspirational. You're seeing what they're doing. And it's sometimes you see what they're doing is not that beyond what you can do technically.
I've seen two. What do you think about this? Because I've seen at that highest level, the world championship level, I've had two impressions.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't look like they're just doing you don't see them doing anything fancy. You're sort of like,
Yes.
How is Demian Maia completely controlling Gunnar Nelson
Right.
on the ground?
Right.
I don't see him doing it. He's not cartwheeling over him. He's
Yeah.
just so Gunnar Nelson's amazing at jiu-jitsu, and Maia's just like completely controlling him. Like, remember that MMA match?
Yeah.
And it was like, what? But you didn't see him doing anything in particular.
Right.
And and that was MMA, but for jiu-jitsu, I see it a lot where you're like, this guy's obviously incredible. It looks doable, right?
Looks
It looks.
doable.
On the other hand, sometimes they show clips, usually for this reason, someone looks superhuman, like just
Yes.
stringing together
Right.
10 fancy moves and cartwheeling and flip, like.
Or the smaller guys who
Yeah.
are very mobile and athletic, they
Yeah.
can do some freaky things that I might feel like, yeah, I'm probably never going to do that. Yeah.
Right. So it's sort of the different. So I think it's maybe more inspirational when you don't see like some of the small guys doing this athletic stuff, and you're like, I'll never do that. It seems otherworldly. But those guys lose to guys that just do sort of what you'd say call the basics, right?
Yeah.
Like,
So I think there's a couple things going on. I see some world champ, and he's doing some stuff that I'm like, yeah, that's kind of in my wheelhouse. Obviously, I'm not as good as him, but I could probably take his approach and make it effective. So that's cool. The other thing I think you get out of it is what they do in the match is more accurate than what they teach. Sometimes they'll have an instructional, and there'll be a deviation between what their instruction says to do and what they're actually doing in the match. So it's good to see that discrepancy, to see what's really working at the highest level. Is pretty cool. And then,
or even if it's not what they said, you might notice like, look, he had success doing it this way,
right,
which I was told not to do it that way, but here's a world champion,
right,
making it work.
Yeah. Then I think you get a feeling for their rhythm and their pace, how fast they're going.
Right.
Kind of, I'm like, oh, right, okay, and you just get like a visceral or a physical feel for the rhythm and the vibe. I think can help your game.
That's a good point, because that you won't get that anywhere else. You won't get it from an instructional or even from drilling or any of those kind of things.
I agree. And then the other thing I realized you get is I was watching Lucas Lepri, and I forget his opponent's name, but he was in the finals. It was a 10-minute match, and it was 0-0 at the end of the match, no advantages, and he won the referee's decision. But it was a super hard-fought match for 10 minutes, and nobody scored a point, and you realize, oh, right, even though these guys are the best in the world, often it's very hard for them as well. I think we have this myth that once you get to a certain level of mastery, everything gets easy. Right. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. I heard a rock climber being interviewed. I forget his name at the moment on a podcast. And I heard another rock climber who was very good say a similar thing, is that it doesn't really ever get easy because they're also pushing their edge all the time. So it's like, yeah, my fingers hurt. I was exhausted. And you think, oh, I thought at his level it would be super easy. But
right. I have a parallel point that I noticed with running. Mm-hmm. And maybe, I think it maybe applies to almost any athletic endeavor or even any endeavor, which is I'd run and run and run and be like, I'm never getting in shape. It's never getting easier. It still hurts. And what it is, in retrospect, I'm pretty sure, is like you just push faster and faster.
Yeah, you're pushing the boundaries of your capacity.
Right. So, and, so I do the same route, and I'm like, I'm running the same route, and it keeps hurting.
Yeah.
And like, I think I'm going faster.
Definitely.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Because.
Like, so I don't think you have to always train to pain and discomfort, but I think for some reason it's comforting for me to see the very best in the world struggle, or say they still have to struggle. It's like, oh, okay, so the fact that I'm struggling now isn't terrible. It's kind of part of the program.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely. Especially if you're pushing the pace like that. So that's what I've been doing, Dan. Then he said maybe before you go to bed at night or before practice. I've been trying to do it before practice. Watch some of this stuff and just kind of get a vibe going before I go into the practice.
And who is it? Preferably someone that inspires you, or
I think that's probably good. And then there's some people that I think sort of match your style, your physiology, your personality, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of built like that guy, and I kind of have his approach. So let me watch him, see what he's doing. and how he approaches these things. And I think that's probably insightful and motivating. And to that end, the next tip he has is spend 15 minutes a day engraving the skill on your brain. So I think those kind of go hand in hand. If you can just like, if not actually practice something yourself, watch somebody doing it really well, you know what I mean? It's going to help you.
Right. And well, with jiu-jitsu, it's more, that's easier than with most other things because that's show up at the gym and you're pretty much engraving some skills into your brain.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas opposed if you're applying this to basketball, you know, maybe you're not spending 15 minutes shooting the free throws, or, you know what I mean? Like
Maybe.
and almost anyone listening that does jiu-jitsu actively is doing that, right? Don't you think?
I think so. I was thinking that I'm going to put a big TV in the training room, Dan, and then put up and show some of these matches like before class starts, like just have them running for the 30 minutes before training starts. So if somebody wanted to watch, they could. I've also heard a guy that was teaching copywriting, how to write good marketing copy, and his suggestion was find the historically known great examples of copywriting and literally write them out by hand several times. And the idea is somehow you're internalizing the rhythm and the pacing and the wording of what's going on, so that when you go to write your own version of something, you won't necessarily copy it, but you'll have internalized some of these rhythms and some of these patterns that are in there. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So the key there is the writing by hand. Is it the idea?
I don't think it has to be by hand, but the idea is repeating something that we know is excellent in order to sort of internal. I could see with maybe if somebody was a composer of music, you know, if they by wrote down some great music of all time, when they go to write their own music, they'll have internalized some of the patterns that are effective. I have no idea.
Right.
You know, they have this thing in human nature that they say other primates don't have. We have this mirroring thing where we copy other humans' behavior, but I think it's related to theory of mind that we talked about before, where we'll copy everything. So we don't copy just the stuff that we understand the purpose behind. You know what I mean? So, and some people would think at first glance, well, that's a weakness. If I'm like, oh, I want to be like Dan, I start wearing the same clothes, like some people did that with Steve Jobs. They start wearing turtleneck shirts, something like this, and they're like, well, that's not even a correlation. That has nothing to do with the guy's greatness, but that's our human nature.
Right. But I thought you also mean subconsciously, right? Like not even or do you mean conscious decision to copy someone?
I think
it's both.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's one of our learning methods, but part of what it is we don't only take the stuff that we understand the purpose behind. We take other stuff that we have no idea why the guy's doing it, but we're just going to do it that way anyways. And apparently other primates don't necessarily do that.
Sure, you know, I don't see how this could help me.
But the benefit of that is that you end up taking up characteristics and behaviors that you don't know why they're good, but they are good. They do have an effect.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes sense. You've heard that in business, right? It's like for like sort of like sales or just doing well in business, sort of like mirroring technique. It's
right.
like just shake their hand and act exactly like that. Like if they have a certain like, hey, how you doing? You go, good. How you doing? Like in the same tone of voice. And like if they're like, pleased to meet you, you're like, also pleased to meet you. You know, like it's sort of like mirror. And
well, that's kind of a stereotype in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is sometimes students who have a Brazilian instructor, they'll start talking with a Brazilian accent when they talk about Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I think that's related to that.
That's funny. I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, that happens.
I could picture it.
Yeah. There's a famous athlete now. She competes in the UFC, Mackenzie Dern, I think is her name?
Dern, yeah.
And they have like this sort of time lapse of her when she used to speak perfect American English, and now she speaks broken English with this Brazilian accent. It's pretty entertaining to see that. I don't know.
So I think the reason it's an instinct is probably because people might like you more, right? For if you're imitating them, but it's also but it's hardwired in.
It's hardwired in. That's how we learn. That's how, and that's how we create. You know, we develop culture and this cross cultural exchange. I think, and things like that. I was thinking, what do you think about this? What if there was some famous world championship Brazilian jiu-jitsu matches, right? There was a back and forth. This guy scores, that guy scores. And you memorize the actual match. So my son and I memorize a match, and once a week we walked through that match at, 75% speed. I wonder if that would improve your jiu-jitsu. It might, right? It might help you understand.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to check it out.
Yeah. It'd be a small
You could
investment.
do it once or twice and just see what you feel about it.
Yeah. I thought that.
You might get a sense. You might go, this isn't doing anything. or you might.
I'm going to check on my calendar. Wasted my day. Yeah.
But the good news is I do think people doing jiu-jitsu are by definition doing this a lot more than other people. I was thinking you were saying like the composer goes through and writes, but as opposed to sitting there, but jiu-jitsu people are doing a lot. Like they are doing a lot. Like they are going through, they are repeating.
There's a lot of application.
Yeah, they're repeating
Definitely.
motions a lot. They're practicing a lot. So they're sort of at least halfway there already.
But it is important that you practice the right motion, because whatever you're practicing is getting ingrained in your nervous system.
Tell me about it. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
I think I have
I'm emphasizing that more and more at the Academy with people is.
I have more to unlearn than I have.
Yeah, that can happen.
Than I've learned.
I don't know if that's true for you, but yeah, I get a little uncomfortable when I see somebody drilling something very imprecisely. It drives me nuts. It's like you gotta do it the right way, or you're actually hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So now, okay, we're on to tip 3 here of today's podcast. Buy a notebook. So for my jiu-jitsu, I do have several notebooks. I got to somehow get in the habit of using them more.
So I've heard this advice for a decade now, right? Like it's like you need a notebook, and it comes up constantly, right? Like I've been told it repeatedly. I've heard it a million times. I've read it, and like I just know I'm not going to.
I have them. I got to come up with a better method, because I put them in like a training bag, and it gets at the bottom of the bag, and I spill stuff on it, and then I pull it out 6 months later, and it looks like something that was sitting at the bottom of the ocean for years.
Actually, here's a question. I'd love to. Do you have any sense for this? Do you know anyone that has successfully used a notebook? I suspect
jiu-jitsu?
I suspect yes in jiu-jitsu. That I suspect the answer is yes, but I don't know who or how common it is that people are like, yes, I always write stuff down, and I go back to, because some people will say, yeah, I have a notebook, but did you use it? And did you? All I want is examples of people that are like used a notebook consistently and are like, yeah, it benefited me a lot.
Well, Dan,
because I hear the advice a lot more
now
than
that you
I
say
actually
that,
hear real examples.
Now that you say that, in my 20 years of experience, I've literally never witnessed it, but I have a story of a guy, and I forget his name, but back when I started in 1999, his name was Mike something or other, and I think he was like a very educated, smart guy, and then they said he constantly had a notebook. Then I think he moved to New York. I don't know if he worked on Wall Street or something, but I heard he was freakishly good. He was very good, not freakishly good. He was just excellent at jiu-jitsu, and they attributed it to his methodical approach, and he did have a notebook that he used on a daily basis. So that's, and funny I should say it, because I didn't see it, Dan. In 20 years, I've never seen it, but I've heard a story of it.
Yeah. Was that 20 years ago?
Yeah.
But I feel like in recent years, people still talk about notebooks all the time.
I think it
people
definitely
tell
would
me
help.
like you should get a notebook, but I've never really seen. I've never seen.
Rory and I were doing it for a while. I think beginning of last year maybe, and we would roll with each other, sort of free roll, and then at the end of it, I would say, you write down everything you just learned. I'll write down everything I did, and I would find like 5 things, and then we would compare notes. And usually he would have a couple things that I overlooked, and I would have a couple things he overlooked. So I thought that was very effective. But I found now that our training is so much more organized that it's not that wide open like that. You know what I mean? Like we're going to a position and working it there. So there's usually only like one important detail that'll come up in a training session. So it's probably a combination of we're just not training that broadly anymore because we're competing. So you have to narrow down what you're doing. So notebook is less necessary if you're learning one thing at a time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I'd like to hear, someone should tell you or I example. Let us know if you're using a notebook effectively.
I don't see it in my academy. I don't see anybody
But
doing it.
maybe when they come home, they get home.
That would be a poor use of it because it's going to leave your brain. I think you got to do
Yeah.
it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do it more, Dan. I'm gonna put my mind to it.
All
You
right,
inspired
notebooks.
me. This podcast is so inspirational.
Yeah. Of that one, I
Unbelievable.
know I'm not going to do. I make lists, though. I make lists. I'm a big list guy.
Lists
Like
of what?
things to do, things to get done.
And that helps you get it done.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just be like,
Definitely.
here's the things I need to do. Because there's all these things circling in your head. Like even,
How many do you put on the list at a time? Is it a daily list
Depends.
or a running list?
it can be both. Either
Okay.
one. Like even this. So one example, I just said that I'm doing this yard work. And I'm like, so I like ripped up old steps from my yard and replaced the steps. I'm putting in a railing and doing like this kind of stuff. And like, there was just so many things to do and all these trips to Home Depot and all this. And I was just like, it helped me a lot to write down like the order of things I'm going to do. Like dig the hole for the railing, dig another hole for, like fill it with, get the concrete, get the, like, and just organize it. And then I can check it off as it gets done.
Yeah.
Big list guy. So I'm not a
Nice.
notebook guy, but I like lists.
All right, sir. Very good. So I think this might be our last point. So this one, they say choose Spartan over luxurious. So what they're trying to get at is if you're in, especially physical training, if it feels dirtier and grimier and rougher and harder and more Spartan, people tend to work harder. If you're in a gym that has, chrome weightlifting machines and everything's cushy and the air conditioning's on, the studies indicate, these social psychology studies, which we know, Dan, are never wrong, that people work harder. When
I remember a study of saying
cruddier.
if you worked out in a pink room, you would lift less weight than like. a
I'm sure
massive
I've heard of
room.
that one.
But I remember there was a couple works by Rocky Balboa that I think confirmed this,
Confirm.
right? Like Rocky 3, right? You have Mr. T,
How about Rocky 1 when I think it's 1 where he's chasing a chicken around a yard?
right? And yeah, all the
That's
actually
an effective use of
right.
time right
and
there,
Apollo was sort of glamming it up.
right? The ultimate is, of course,
How about-
Rocky 4.
Well, what about first? But even before that, Clubber Lang was in his basement doing pull-ups with the leaky pipes,
Oh, yeah.
and Rocky was getting soft in his mansion with the
Yep.
robot,
Bang. Right there.
Right?
Right.
and then 4, same,
They flipped the switch in 4. He
Right.
he was carrying logs in the snow.
and Drago was in his fancy laboratory.
Right. With the punching machine that shows he punches at
So
3,000.
we have a number of
something or other.
examples already that can confirm this. But I've always felt that way, don't you? Like I go to the free weights instead of
it.
the machines.
Yeah.
And realistically, I'm sure the machines are fine. They work the same muscles, but it is something.
Yeah, I wonder
just,
now if that really has any effect now that I think about it, because so many, Dan, of those psychological studies have not been replicated by anybody.
Yeah, but that
It's a
doesn't mean that
complete bogus.
none of them are true. I mean,
Right.
if nothing else, it could 50-50. Like even if it was a meaningless study, it would be 50-50 whether it's true.
I bet about half of them are true, probably. Yeah, half are complete bogus. Nonsense, yeah. To that regard, we don't have air conditioning at our academy, Dan. And I kind of like it, but I think
Well,
it's probably hurting my business.
There's a broader point though about jiu-jitsu, and this is philosophical, but because everyone's going to have a different level of this, but I've always felt like people can't lose sight of the fact that you're learning combat, you're learning to fight, and it shouldn't be that soft. I'm sure it's
agree.
come up on here. Like I don't like at all when someone says you're going too hard or going, We all know, of course, you can go too hard. No one wants a finger in their eye or put your knee on my face for no reason or but you should be able to deal with whatever is there. It's not, you're really supposed to be, what are you there for? You know what I mean? It's not a dance lesson. You're supposed to be there learning to defend yourself in some way, right? So
I completely agree.
you don't want to be like, oh, I've been attacked and he's going really hard. You know, like you're supposed to be like, go as hard as you want. New guys always ask like, how hard should I go? And I'm always like, go as hard as you want. Like we're supposed to be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like, I don't run into people. Most guys I think feel the same way. Occasionally I've run into someone where like, I don't know, I pass their guard and my knee kind of hits them in the side and they'll be like, oh, Jesus Christ, you know, and I'm like, dude, calm down, you know, like, yeah, my knee hits you, like, you'll be all right. Like, you know,
your skin is rough.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be harsh. So I'm kind of for
totally
the no
agree.
air conditioning. And
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the whole thing. You could keep glamming it up with air conditioning and make it softer. You could get mattresses that we're rolling on, and I don't know.
I
bring
think the
back
heat is
bring
good
back the
too
ferns.
because it forces you to slow down a bit, be more technical. You can't go completely berserk. So in some ways, it's probably better for learning and technique.
If you're working out, you shouldn't. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be hot anyway, right? It should. I don't know.
I think so. But if it gets too hot for you, just stop and rest. I'm not another big proponent of, you know, knowing your limits. And if you got to stop and rest, fine. Stop and rest, you know?
Yeah.
So, Dan, we're going to wrap it up here. So we actually got through a few points here. We got the last point we did was we want Spartan conditions to toughen us up. Buy a notebook. That was a point. And then what was the other one? Oh, we're going to put the TV in the training room so we can watch these world championship matches.
Saying watch in a non-creepy fashion. Stare at.
That was
Wasn't
3
that
or
what
4.
you said? Stare at?
Yeah. Stare at who you want to become.
Stare at who you want to become.
But do not violate the restraining order.
Yeah,
No, it
I'd
doesn't say
I'd
that
say
part, yeah.
watch sits a little better with me than stare at.
So we're gonna watch. We're gonna keep watching the matches. I'm gonna get a notebook, Dan. I'm gonna try to see if that's helping me. And
I imagine a lot of people in the gym look up to you, John. So I recommend that they all stare at you as much as possible.
definitely
Everyone in the gym, every student in the gym should stare at you.
staring. Oh, then the beginning of her podcast, we talked about the Jerry Seinfeld / Dan Robin method of calendars and X's and O's.
Just precise definitions. And keep that calendar up.
I think it's great.
And if you fall off the wagon again for like 2 months, it's staring you right in the face. You'd be like, I have 2 months of a blank calendar right in front of me. You know, I don't think you'd do it.
Reality.
But I think you would. I think people wouldn't want to. They'd be like, I can't let it go that long.
Can't. And then you're going to change your set point, so you're going to be healthier.
Yeah.
And you know you can still enjoy your life.
Right.
No problem.
Another life-changing episode.
Another life-changing episode. I can't wait for all the new reviews to pour in and all the accolades.
We haven't asked for reviews lately.
Yeah, we should get some reviews. So who did I tell you? Dennis Medina.
Yeah.
Said he's loving the podcast. Thank you, Dennis. So
Thanks,
we get a lot
Dennis.
of good positive feedback from people. And I think Dimitri started to like them.
No. Let's not push it.
I told you what my son Rory said about the podcast.
What did he say?
He said, if it wasn't for Dan, I wouldn't listen to them.
Okay. John's own son.
But the reason why I said that is because of all my cockamamie ideas, he hears it all the time. So he's like, I'm sick of hearing it about it, Dad. I just want the entertainment.
He's familiar with a lot of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I bounce it off him. He's a smart guy. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much, folks, for listening. Please tune in again next week. Please rate and review it and tell all your friends. Thanks so much.